Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. The moderate-looking gentleman next to me is Tim, and this is The Second Legacy, and thank you so much for stopping by. Today, we are going to continue diving into this whole fiasco out of New Mexico because it's only getting worse. In fact, the more that you look at the things that we're about to show you, you see the broader picture, and that is what we're all about. So make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. And as always, I owe it to the YouTube experience before me to ask Tim, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. It's just one of those days when you sit back and you try to take it all in, and you see the anti-gunners just stepping in it over and over and over again, and you just kind of go, it's kind of a good day. I mean,
the weather's great, the sun is shining, gun controllers be stepping. No, it's good. It's good. It's interesting, though, Tim, because what we're going to talk about, beautiful people, The Second Legacy, we're going to dive into a few things. So we're going to show you what this sheriff did and then break down the context of what he's alluding to in his press conference, where he throws the governor under the bus. And this is in New Mexico, where she basically banned the Second Amendment for 30 days. Okay. But one of the things that we talked about, and I want to slide right into this, Tim, because I think this is a very important piece. We hit in our video yesterday that this was broader than just New Mexico. This was broader than just localized gun control. And it was weird that a lot of gun control proponents were quiet. Well, as time goes on, Tim, time tells. Time does tell. Here's where we were yesterday. So, Mr. Producer, throw up number one to remind the people. This is what Ted Lieu said on his Twitter account around the governor's actions in New Mexico. I support gun safety laws. However, this order from the governor of New Mexico violates the U.S. Constitution. No state in the Union can suspend the federal Constitution. There is no such thing as a state public health emergency exception to the U.S. Constitution. And a lot of others hit that, and we really set up camp on that because it's weird when you see Democrat gun controllers doing that. Well, now, Tim, let's fast forward to today, and let me show you what a state senator in New Mexico is saying. This is a Democrat state senator, Tim, number 2, Mr. Producer. So I tweeted this out yesterday. This is Senator Joe Cervantes. Having passed key gun safety laws working with her administration, being the governor of New Mexico, I call on the governor to rescind her order outlawing arms. Interesting. An unconstitutional approach undermines the important collaboration gun issues deserve and the important role of a governor to lead genuine reforms. So with that right there, Tim, does that not confirm exactly what we were heading towards yesterday when we were talking about this exact same thing?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of expected because we saw a hint of this direction from the anti-gunners when we talked about what Davey Hogg was saying and Lieu and all those other people. And now we're having other representatives within New Mexico coming out saying, we can't be doing this. Let's, basically we're sidestepping the entire process here. And what's interesting also, which this representative didn't bring up, but it would seem important to me, is that not only do we have a Second Amendment at the federal level in the U.S. Constitution, but the state of New Mexico has a constitution as well. And Article 2, Section 6 specifically says that they have a right to keep and bear arms. So the governor not only violated the federal constitution, but she violated her own state's constitution. That's twofold. And so when you're going into an election year, it kind of forces people to be a little bit more moderate, right? You get all the hyperbole and the hype and stuff like that when there isn't an election pending. That's when people say grandiose things like, we're going to ban them all. And then when the election cycle comes around, it's like, we just want reasonable restrictions.
Well, it's just simple.
Yeah, I mean, that's the game we play. I watch it play out over and over and over again every 2 to 4 years. And so it's not surprising to see this response because they're playing politics. Now, secretly, I would imagine this representative's behind the scenes going, oh, that's so awesome, I wish it would stick. Right. But when the camera gets turned on, the moderate comes out because we're in an election year. So there you have it.
Yep. So there you have it. But you know what's interesting, and this is so fascinating to me because as you go through this process, because social media has only accelerated the time that these things develop. Right, these things used to take 2 and 3 days, the media news cycle, people catch it. Now they're happening in 12, 4 hour. I mean, they're happening so fast. But what's interesting about this is he is now moving the ball forward a little bit. He's not just saying, hey, this is an unconstitutional order, we should be careful. He literally is calling on her to rescind the order. That is like, stop doing what you're doing, please pull it back. You're going to harm gun control going forward. You're even already seeing a lot of talk, Tim, around New Mexico flipping to Trump because of this woman's actions. This is broader than just the little teapot she thought she was operating in, and I think this speaks to that for sure.
Well, we talked about this in yesterday's video. I mean, she really has, I imagine in her mind, she thought, well, if I do this, then, I'm going to win all this political capital. I'm going to have so many people coming to me and saying, that's so awesome you did that. Thank you for doing that. I wish other governors would do the same. And she got the exact opposite response. I would imagine.
Exactly, which is interesting.
Yeah, well, again, I think it has a lot to do with, the very divisive nature of this election cycle. And both sides are being very careful on who they upset because they need every single vote they can get.
Every one of them.
And so that's kind of what we're seeing here. So it completely backfired on her. And I would imagine next time around, and other governors or other representatives in her position are going to reach out to the party and say, hey, I'm planning on doing this. What do you guys think? Because
not off the seat.
Right, clearly this was done in a vacuum, and I don't think she anticipated the blowback she's receiving. But I'm glad she's receiving it because now we're sending a message to those that would do similar things that, hey, this ain't going to fly. Everybody's going to come down on you, not just the pro-gun people, but the anti-gun people are going to come down on you too. So really it plays out to our favor all the way around. And I just love it when they shoot themselves in the foot. It's just so fun.
100%. And think of it from this angle, and this is what I think is fascinating about our industry and our sector and our population of the Second Amendment advocacy. Sometimes there's a propensity to say, well, he should go arrest her. Like the stuff we're about to show you with this sheriff, how he throws her under the bus in this press conference. There's a propensity to say, go all the way, arrest her. Make sure that everyone feels this. Now, whether she's going to be arrested or not going to be arrested or impeached or unimpeached, that's a different conversation at a different time. But understand, with the blowback that everyone is seeing, we talked about it yesterday, other governors are watching this. With the blowback and the basically thrown under the bus nature of what's happening to this governor, no other governor is going to do this right now. So it's serving as a deterrent. It's a lot more important than just this one little item in the teapot. This is everyone watching. In fact, I think that's an important segue because sheriffs, Tim, I know you love you some sheriffs, and I do too, because they're incredibly important.
I'm all about elected officials. I'm not all about political appointments and lifelong appointments. I'm totally against most of that.
Oh, you don't like those?
Except in the courts. I'm fine
like
with the Supreme Court. I've never had a problem with them doing lifelong appointments, but I don't like politicians and bureaucrats having lifelong jobs. And anyway, I think you get the point.
Yeah, no, I got you. I do understand completely. Well, just to start this ball off, check this out. This is the press conference from yesterday. This is the sheriff of Bernalillo County. I can never say this word. Bernalillo. Oh my gosh.
We'll just call it Bernie County.
You know what, Bernie?
County.
I cannot say that word. I don't know why. I just cannot do it. Bernie County. So here's the sheriff of said Bernie County starting off this press conference around the governor's orders. Check this out. Number 3, Mr. Producer.
Let me be clear. I hold my standards high, and I do not or never will hedge on what is right. And I take my oath seriously. In reference to concealed carry and open carry, the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office will not enforce this segment of the order. While I understand the urgency, the temporary ban challenges the foundations of our Constitution, but most importantly, it is unconstitutional. My oath was to protect the Constitution, and that is what I will do. The governor made it clear in her press conference. She knew we as law enforcement did not agree with the order, and as a result, this was solely her decision. Other than this ban being unconstitutional, here are other reasons why I will not enforce the order.
And we're going to go into the reasons in a second because the reasons were gold. But initial reaction, Tim, what do you think about that?
Well, I've seen comments on the internet where people have said, well, that's a neat statement and all, but he should arrest her. Mm-hmm. And
right.
Think about that for a moment, right? So we're playing politics here. I mean, that's that's just a fact of life. We have to play politics, right? And that's what this sheriff is doing. He's beating her up publicly, saying, you shouldn't do this. I'm not going to enforce it. But he's stopping short of arresting her, which a lot of folks in the comment sections have called for. But imagine what would happen if he did arrest her. Now we've given our opponents something they can glob onto and say, oh my gosh, these crazy pro-gunners, these Republicans, they arrested a duly elected governor, and my gosh, we can't have that. And they're going to clutch their pearls. And so we don't want the pearl clutching. We don't want them to have that ammunition. We don't want to hand it to them because they handed us a great victory in this stupidity, and we don't want to hand it back to them by doing something that could give them the ammunition that they need to counter our argument. So while it'd be fun to see her get arrested and mugshotted and all that stuff, I don't think it's expedient for our cause, right? I think the sheriff's taking the right tact on this one.
Excellent point. Tim, I am so proud of what just came out of your mouth. And the pearl clutching, that was amazing, by the way. Did
anybody notice I put pearls on?
Oh, it was so good. It was good. Clutching the pearls. It was amazing. We're bringing props into the second legacy. It's for effect. Don't worry about it. What's so strong about what you just said is everything that we've seen over the past 6 months, the left has been doing exactly what you just said. They have started a catalyst. They've started something. The Republicans or conservatives will respond, and they've made the issue about the response not around the original catalyst. For example, in Tennessee, when they were trying to do the whole gun push and gun control push, and the representatives on the Democratic side of the aisle got up and led protest inside the state chamber for the legislature, which is clearly against the rules. They wouldn't stop. They had bullhorns on the floor. They were causing a ruckus. Well, honestly, the Tennessee legislature and the entire caucus of the Republicans took the bait and they expelled them. Well, it became a national story around how mean the Republicans were, how gun control gets a foothold, and now they're going to have a special session of which they attempted to do the exact same thing, which is when you saw all the women holding signs, they're arresting people for carrying signs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It was the exact same thing. It's more of the same.
Yes.
This is the exact opposite because Grisham crossed the line. Everyone knows she crossed the line in banning the Second Amendment. You cannot do this, and we all know it. Because there was a peaceful protest and because there was open resistance on both sides, the left has nothing to focus on away from her actions. That is so massive to understand. We are playing political chess. That's what this is. And you said it very, very well. This is politics. Yes, it's an infringement. Absolutely could he arrest her, but could you imagine how the story would shift if she was just trying to do something to save lives? And, she may have crossed the line a little bit, but the courts would have struck it down. But they marched into her office and arrested her.
Guns drawn.
That's exactly.
Yes, it was just the most violent thing, and they accost her, the misogynists, oh my gosh. It would be never ending, and we would lose the narrative.
Yep.
We have the narrative right now.
We lose it. Exactly. Tim, yes, because one of the things that we fall for, and this is a very important point, beautiful people, the second legacy, we lose the narrative a lot of the time because we want to jump to the end result quickly. If there's impeachment, if there is political ramifications, they will come. But understand, what Tim just said, we have the narrative on this one. They are openly on the defense. As long as we keep it and don't give them anything to focus on, we will win this bigly. Just saying. But let's continue because we've got some more clips from this guy because I love me some sheriffs, and then we'll talk about some other stuff that's happening behind the scenes. Let's get it. Number 4, Mr. Producer.
Force the order. One, what many forget is I have enough violence here in Bernalillo County. I do not want to have political violence towards my deputies or here in Bernalillo County. My job is to keep the peace and to make sure that the citizens of Bernalillo County are safe, and I do not believe that this order will help me do so. I'm a law enforcement professional. This order will not do anything to curb gun violence other than punish law-abiding citizens from their constitutional right to self-defense.
Any questions?
No, he pretty much laid it out there, and he's absolutely right. Even the governor herself said she didn't expect this order to change anything criminally-wise. I mean, the criminals were going to still criminal. She admitted it.
On camera.
Yes.
On camera.
So what is the point? If you're enacting this to save lives, oh my gosh, then you come right out and say it's not going to do anything. It's not going to save a single life because the criminals are going to be criminals still. Because the order that I just issued is only going to cause law-abiding people to disarm themselves and become victims. The criminals are going to keep their guns because criminals, by their very nature, break laws and little dictates handed down from dictators high above. They ignore them all because they're criminals. That's what criminals do by the very nature of the definition.
You know what's funny, and I love this? Tim, you haven't even seen the next clip, and that's exactly where he goes.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, let's go into that.
That's exactly good setup. Good setup. You just felt it. I loved it. All right. So number 5, Mr. Producer.
I have a fact for you. Criminals do not follow the law or a public health order. Never seen it, and we will never see criminals follow the law. Once again, this only punishes law-abiding citizens.
Oh,
I love that so much.
And if you extrapolate that out, all these gun bans, all these proposed laws that would heavily restrict law-abiding citizens from defending themselves, that's the same outcome. What he's talking about is on a micro level within the state of New Mexico. But at a national level, this is what the anti-gunners are doing. Every time they pass a law saying the law-abiding must submit to registration, the law-abiding must submit to background checks, the law-abiding must submit, the criminals aren't. And so all we're doing is tying the hands of the law-abiding in favor of the criminals, which the left seems to love. They don't want to prosecute them. They want to give them no cash bail. They just want to turn them loose on society for the vote, presumably. I don't know why they do it. But what he said there, it just kind of encapsulates the entire anti-gun movement at a much higher level, at the national level.
100%. Because, and again, what's powerful about this is these sheriffs, they do this at a local level where they have absolute power because they've been supported by the actual population who voted for them. But that's the point. We've seen sheriffs time and time and time again do this exact same thing. I'm going to show you a different sheriff in a second from earlier this year, like 2 months ago. But one thing that I want to hit on, Tim, just really quickly. In my comments on my video, because I covered this similar thing last night when I was actually much fresh. It was like it just happened. So a lot of the comments were going after this sheriff had endorsements from Everytown for Gun Safety. This sheriff had support from Everytown for Gun Safety. So he should go arrest them. And if he doesn't, excuse me, and if he doesn't, then that's the problem, and he's the problem, and it's just a lot of talk. I want to address that really quickly because this kind of goes to, again, the game of politics. Let's say, for example, Tim, let's just do a hypothetical. Let's say this sheriff was completely in the bag for gun control, because I'm not saying his political views. I'm not saying yay or nay. I'm not saying he's, the second
Well, they've
coming
elected a
of,
Democratic governor. It stands to reason
John Brown.
they would elect a Democratic sheriff. So, yeah.
It does make sense. Right. And that, exactly right, stands to make sense. But that doesn't mean he's going to go and do something extremely unconstitutional, because it's this blatantly and obviously unconstitutional. And I think that's an important piece to talk about, is because just because that may have happened prior, and I'm not saying that's okay or that's a good thing, but what I am saying is what he's doing right now, to Tim's point, it's showcasing exactly our point of what happens on a national level when you take the gun control approach. He's not endorsing this. He's basically torpedoing the entire idea. Even if he were an ardent leftist, what he's saying in this one moment is constitutionally correct. That's why I'm showing you this. Not because I want to endorse the man, because what he's actually saying in the light of a tyrannical order is correct. Does that make sense? I mean, am I landing that plane?
No, I think so. Yeah. I mean, look, you can hate somebody for their party affiliation. It doesn't make sense to me, but you can do that. But not everybody's cookie cutter, and not everybody adheres to all the tenets of a particular party. I know for a fact that, the D.C. Democrats, the elected officials, having been there, walked the halls, talked to representatives, there are very few, maybe one, maybe two in the House and the Senate combined, Democrats that would take any position that would be considered pro-gun. They're all anti-gun. That is now the Democratic Party's plank. Ban guns at a national level. Now, you back that up, and I've said this many times, and you come to just the rank and file Democrats, a good number of them, 30%, maybe more, 40%, are gun owners. And they don't agree with the radical policies of the ban everything groups that have now taken and commandeered control of their party. They don't believe that. So they may believe in reasonable restrictions, which in their mind would be a background check. And they're fine with that. Now, we're on the more extreme side, if you will. We think it's a waste of time and money, and it's discriminatory. But we can disagree on that. That doesn't make them anti-gun, right? They just support anti-gun policies. But they may very well support the overall ownership. So anyway, I guess I'm just kind of drilling down too far into what the ideology of the Democrat Party is. But what he's doing here he may very well, like you said, be anti-gun and support such legislation, but what he's doing here is being a duly elected sheriff that is following the Constitution, and he's made the right decision despite what his politics may be elsewhere. What he's saying at a national level, which is getting national attention, everybody's watching right now, what he said benefits us, and he's right, regardless of his politics.
Exactly. That is exactly right. And in fact, just as a side note, I have an employee looking into just that and finding the receipts for that, so we'll know if that's true or not pretty soon. But this is something else that I think is really important. I want to show you another sheriff that we had, and this was about a month ago. Mr. Producer, could you throw number 7 up?
Well, we have to stop people that have bad intentions. Guns, the story is always about guns. The people are bad. This guy's a bad guy. If I could take my gun off right now and I lay it on this counter, nothing will happen. It'll sit there. But as soon as a wicked person grabs a hold of that handgun and starts shooting people with it, there's the problem. The problem is the individual. Now, guns are a tool that people use to do horrible things, but it's the individuals that wield these things. So we are working hard to try to stop that. But in this situation, in this case, there was nothing illegal about him owning the firearms.
Now, in that clip, he's talking about a tragedy that happened in Jacksonville, but the premise remains the same. How many times, Tim, have we seen multiple sheriffs come out and say that exact same thing?
Many times.
The reason it's so massive is because it's the truth of their position is being exposed to the national media. When they have that much attention focused on a topic and a sheriff comes out and says things like we're covering here in Bernie County and we're covering here in Jacksonville, these things have merit, they have weight. It gives us clips that we can literally spread this as far as we can on multiple outlets. The infrastructure on gun YouTube uses this very, very effectively. That's the power. It's not that they're perfect, but the sheriffs are constitutionally elected. This is, I think, they're underplayed and they're undervalued.
Well, just as that officer said, look, this is something we've been saying forever. It is not the tool that we need to be blaming. We need to address the underlying problem, and that is the violence that people are committing. It's the violent person that's the problem. It's not the tool. You can't run around banning everything that people misuse to hurt each other with. And that's the point we've been trying to make all along. The easy button is, well, let's just ban inanimate objects, and that should fix the problem. But we already have a lot of history out there and a lot of examples of where it doesn't fix the problem. People still commit acts of violence. So if you refuse to address the root problem, you're never going to fix the problem. Well, anyway, as this situation continues to unfold, which I'm sure it will, we'll bring you more information. It's been an interesting story so far, but I don't think we're quite done just yet. If you guys enjoy The Second Legacy, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you want to be part of our call-in show, there's a link in the video description below. Fill out that information. We'll get you on the show. Thank you for watching The Second Legacy, and we'll talk to you guys soon.